This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on cabinet decisions. The participants are Mahesh Uppal, telecom expert, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent.
The Union Cabinet approved rupees 1.64 lakh crore package for revival of state-owned telecom firm BSNL. Sir, can you tell us what is the importance of the telecom sector to the growth and development of the Indian economy? And what is the significance of today's announcement for the overall strength of the telecom sector in our country?
The telecom sector today is an extremely key sector of the economy because not only the traditional communications that we depend on the telecom sector for that, but because of our increasingly digital approach to life, whether it is governance, whether it is finance, a whole range of activities that we currently perform today are done digitally. So the role of telecom itself has become very central to the economy. And today I think telecom and IT probably account for roughly 6% of India's economy. So it is very important. And BSNL, which was the incumbent operator when we started the entry of private sector companies, if you recall, the telecom sector had been a government monopoly till the mid-90s. In fact, not even run by the company. In fact, it was run by the government itself, which then corporatized its operations in 2000 and converted it into BSNL. So BSNL is the main public sector undertaking which provides telecom services in India. As you know, over the years, private sector has taken much of that market, and today BSNL controls nearly 10% of that market. So BSNL has been in trouble recently, both financially as well as in the marketplace. It has not been able to provide a competitive quality or range of services that its private competitors provide. In particular, as you're aware, BSNL has yet to start its 4G operations, which have in fact been operational in the private sector for the last 6 years. So BSNL is struggling, and I think it still has an important role. And I do believe that having one operator in the country which is controlled by or run by the government is not a bad idea, because we not only need competition between private and private, we also need competition between private and government. We also need competition between various types of technologies, business models, etc. So BSNL has an important role, and it also has strengths in certain parts of India's markets. So I think it is something that deserves support from the government, both financial, political, as well as support in the market, so that it can actually compete more successfully.
So this increased competition that you're talking about, how is it going to help bring efficiency in the provision of services by the entire telecom sector, and how is it going to benefit the consumer?
As we all know, that whenever the level of competition is high in the market, the consumers always benefit because operators have to compete both on price as well as quality. And that is what we have seen. And this is something which will help them, the operators themselves also, because they then having to compete means they have to be more efficient. They have to worry about their quality of service. They have to worry about their prices. So this is extremely good for consumers, and India's telecom users have benefited immensely from competition in the marketplace. BSNL has struggled, and I think with the right support, it too should be able to compete in the marketplace, and it will fill a gap that, as I mentioned, we currently face, which is that the government operator still is not sufficiently competitive.
While announcing the rupees 1.64 lakh crore revival package for BSNL, Union Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Shri Ashwini Vaishnaw, said telecom is a strategic sector of the economy, and PSU being strong in the telecom sector is important from the point of view of national security. Can you tell us something a little more about this aspect?
Yes, there is no doubt that the security of this country depends not only on secure communications between various parts of government and various parts of the armed forces, etc. It also depends on how secure our networks themselves are. For instance, it is possible to commit cyber crime or cyber attacks on India's infrastructure. For example, there were reports that in some countries there have been attempts to attack, for instance, the electricity networks of the country. You also know that Iran, for instance, had a major cyber attack a few years ago. And all of it really, the key way to actually today undermine the security of a country is through cyber attacks on that country, which are integrally related and connected with any country's communication sector and the telecom sector in particular.
In today's announcement, BBNL, the special purpose vehicle formed to implement ambitious BharatNet project, will be merged with the BSNL. How do you see this benefiting the expansion of broadband and internet services in every nook and corner of the country?
BBNL was intended to expand optical fiber coverage throughout the country. And the experience with BBNL has not been entirely satisfactory. We are still not anywhere near meeting the goals the country had set for itself in terms of rural connectivity. And a key reason for that was that bureaucrats and government agencies have not been the most market savvy when it comes to expanding networks. And one hopes that BSNL can in some ways complement the weakness of BBNL, but I think we must recognize that much more needs to be done besides bringing together the resources of BBNL and BSNL. A lot more to be done so that the remote areas and other rural areas in particular are able to enjoy the services that we in urban areas now increasingly enjoy.
So you feel that this strengthening of the financial muscle of the company is going to help BSNL expand the optical fiber network so that vision of providing broadband internet service to every household in the country can be accomplished faster and sooner?
The way to look at it, in my opinion, is this, that it is adding to the financial muscle of BSNL or giving it additional financial resources is a necessary part of this exercise. Unfortunately, it is not sufficient. You will need to do much more than provide money. You will need much better quality management. You would need much better understanding of markets, much better access to technologies, use of technologies, etc., etc. So there is a lot more to do than simply provide money for expanding the networks to rural and other areas.
In fact, in that context, it's very relevant that the Electronic and Information Technology Minister today said that the three elements of this package, the foremost is upgrading and advancement of mobile services and their quality. So you feel that this is the key to achieving the kind of broadband connectivity which being aimed at?
Yes, to some extent that is correct, because most of our Indian users rely on wireless technologies, and wireless technologies, in particular 4G, are key to expanding broadband coverage. But as I said, this is easier said than done. We will need some extremely savvy management and extremely savvy market understanding to help that happen, which unfortunately BSNL has struggled with. It has had impressive successes in some parts of the country, but also has not had the same kind of success in many other parts. And I think some lessons will have to be learned and other correctional steps taken so that BSNL can play the role that it is intended to play.
In fact, the last approval for revival package was given in the year 2019. So you feel that since then there has been improvement in BSNL's performance in terms of becoming a stable entity. In fact, the minister, he quoted that the revenue has reached 19,000 crore. The operating expenses have reached 18,000 crore, whereby the operating profit is 1,000 crore. So coming in the green, you feel that that is also an achievement.
Yes, I do believe that BSNL has shown impressive improvement in recent years. But remember, BSNL is a player in the market and its success has to be compared with the success of its competitors, such as Jio, Airtel, Vodafone. When you do that, then you feel that the other players are far ahead of BSNL. Even Vodafone, which is itself struggling financially, is way ahead of BSNL both in its range of services, quality of services, etc. So as I said, yes, BSNL had major improvements in the last 1 or 2 years, but it has a long way to go as well. And we hope that the new package will go a long way to addressing a part of that problem, and the BSNL's management will have the resources to deal with the rest of the problem.
Going ahead, what do you see as the key elements which are required in the administration and governance of the company so that it comes at par in terms of efficiency, performance with the other players which are there in the telecom sector?
One key element in that would be the management following global best practices in the running of a technology company. Second, it would be the government giving it sufficient autonomy to manage this company in the way its counterparts are managed elsewhere. As you know, being a government company, it has had more than its share of bureaucrats involved in its operations, in its management, in its financial decisions, etc. In my humble opinion, that has been counterproductive for the company. And if the company is to compete in the marketplace, it must have resources comparable to its competitors. And that will require a very high quality management, access and freedom to choose the technologies that it needs to deploy, and it's a financial autonomy so that it can take decisions that it needs to take both freely as well as in good time, because time is of the essence. As you know, BSNL is now 6 years behind its competitors when it comes to 4G. So it is something that we can learn from, which is that we have not given the kind of resources the management of that company requires. So I hope the government will also recognize that and take corrective measures.
So you feel that uncovered villages being saturated by 4G mobile services, that would be the main, you can say, the objective of the merged BSNL. In fact, the figures that have come out, BSNL will get additional 5.67 lakh kilometers of optical fiber, which has been laid across 1.85 lakh village panchayats. This is the additional infrastructure. So you feel this is important for inclusive socio-economic development in urban as well as rural areas?
Yes, to a large extent it is important, but remember one thing, that the uncovered villages of this country, the uncovered areas where the fiber doesn't reach, those are particularly difficult. And those are difficult because they are remote, because of the terrain, and also because the market size, because of their economic parameters, is not very high. And that is one of the reasons why even private sector players are often reluctant to go to those areas and have been reluctant, and that there are major gaps in our network even today. And I think the fact that BSNL is getting the additional resources to do this is a good thing, because being a government operator, it is in a position to prioritize some key public policy objectives such as rural coverage, which certainly you can expect BSNL to prioritize much more than, let us say, its private counterparts. So yes, it does have, but it will also face much of the same problems that any player faces when it tries to expand coverage in rural areas, which is, as I mentioned, the whole issue of remoteness, the fact that the prosperity is not very high, so the demand for services, the ability to pay, etc., is not that much. And of course, the physical infrastructure is very, very expensive to deploy. I mean, you have to deploy towers, you have to provide people on the site to run those services, etc., all of which in remote parts of our country are a major challenge, as our experience in telecom shows.
We sincerely hope that along with the revival package announced today, the concerted efforts of the government machinery will make BSNL a stable, vibrant entity and revitalize the crucial telecom sector. Thank you so much for this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on cabinet decisions. The participants were Mahesh Uppal, telecom expert, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.